Hello and welcome to Spooning with me, Mark Wogan. Each week I'm joined here at the Mount Street restaurant by a very special guest where Chef Jamie Shears cooks up something fantastic for them based on the things that they think they love and the thing they hate. Now, the difference is they try them blindfolded. This week I am joined by an author, a podcaster and an all-round brilliant human being who I am lucky enough to call a friend. It is Elizabeth Day. Hello, Elizabeth.
Mark Wogan. Hello. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for doing our humble little podcast. Which you know, in the humble surroundings of Mayfair and fine foods and all that sort of thing. But considering the vastness of your own podcast, How to Fail, which I think now is at 50 million downloads.
Yes.
Did you have any idea when you started out that it would turn into that?
None. In short, I had no idea that the idea would have resonance beyond my own little interest. So I felt like a failure in my own life in many ways. And I went on a journey to try and discover how other people coped with failure and what tips they could give me. And I put it out in July 2018 and it was 8 episodes the first season. And I thought maybe 6 people would listen to it.
And the first season, correct me if I'm wrong, was fueled by hummus.
Yes, I love that you remember that. Yes, I knew from having listened to a few early podcasts, so this was still in the early days of podcasting, that you needed to get a sponsor to sound professional.
Unlike us late to the party types.
Well, exactly. I mean, I didn't want to say, but really, you've jumped the shark. And I knew that you had to get a sponsor, and I wasn't sure how you did it, but I love hummus. That is one of the things that is on my love list. Love hummus, love chickpeas.
Well, maybe we'll feed you that later, maybe we won't.
Well, I can only hope. Yeah. And I had just discovered this new hummus brand where it tasted delicious because they smoked the chickpeas. And it's a brand called Moorish Hummus. And I DM'd them on Twitter saying, I love your hummus. I'm launching a podcast. Do you fancy being my first sponsor? And amazingly, they said yes. And I think part of the reason they said yes was because it was run by a woman who used to work at the BBC. And she could completely understand the premise of How to Fail. And I put together a proposal, sort of plucking figures from nowhere. And she gave me £250 for the entire first season. But
that's about what we earn off this.
Well, the brilliant thing was I got free hummus, and all of my guests got free cases of hummus for appearing. And they did quite well out of it because those ads were baked in then for many years after that. And it has grown exponentially in a way that I never expected, but I'm so grateful for.
But it is huge now, and it's a huge live thing as well. I mean, I saw on your Instagram feed you played Sydney Opera House.
Yeah, and you have to say played Sydney Opera House because it sounds so rock and roll.
Yeah, no, I played Sydney. Hello, Sydney. But I mean, that's extraordinary to go, because I mean, we've known each other for a few years now.
Yeah, you knew me before any of this started, and you actually knew me at a time when I felt like a real failure. Yeah. You saw me through a lot of that, like that horrible breakup I went through. Yes. You were amazing through that.
We met in a dingy private members club in Soho.
Yes.
And immediately connected, because I think what I love about you is you are a person who wears your intellect very lightly. You know, you are an incredibly intelligent person, but you don't really let anybody know, other than through your work. But even then, you're not forcing it down people's throat. But also on top of that, you get the joke, and what I also love is no subject is off the table with you. Yeah. You know, but your new book.
That's one of the nicest things anyone's ever said to me.
Oh, well,
Thank you very much for saying that. No, I know, but normally you rip the out of me.
Well, you know, it's in front of camera. We have to appear a certain way. But your new book, Friendaholic, it's not only is it a great read because I love how you write and your use of language and all that sort of thing, but also it's slightly uncomfortable as well. And I think there's that thing of those of us who do call you a friend could be challenged by a lot of what you write in here. And you go, oh, you know, first and foremost, why am I not in it? You know, but also that thing, well, you know, but did you change some of the names?
Yes, I want to reassure you.
Because you are really, really honest about, I mean, like the ghosting section and that person's behaviour. is extraordinary. But what I noticed about you was, in your progression to this point that you've reached going through this process of this book, is you always put yourself down there going into a friendship. Because I think because what you're brilliant at is making people feel at ease, making people feel that they're interesting to you, and sort of just straight away being a good friend. But there's also that thing I think you've discovered, that you weren't necessarily comfortable in all that process, that you were kind of doing it to sort of feel like, you know, even from childhood, like to belong in some way. And then realizing as you get older as a person, it's like, you know, it's that old line, it's like, what you think about me is none of my business.
Yeah.
And as long as I keep my side of the street clean, you're welcome to come along for the ride, sort of thing. And I love the little stories in it about other people's experiences of friendship, and I like Charmaine. She doesn't hold back. It's like she doesn't hold back, but I really agree with a lot of what she says about what is an expectation of a friendship, and should you have any at all. But do you feel like, having been through the process of this book, that you are in a very different place as a friend now?
First of all, I actually just want to sit here and hear you explain myself to me, because I'm like, that's so accurate and so profound and so right. So thank you for taking the time to read it properly. And I think it has made me a better friend, which by extension, I hope, has made me a more enlightened person. And actually, that's my dearest wish, that this is what this book will do. By the end of reading it, I hope it makes you into a better friend to yourself first, because that means you can show up for other people that you care about as your authentic self, without feeling that you have to shapeshift and change in order to please someone else's projected desire of what they might or might not want from you. And I think that was something that I was trying to do for a really long time. And we can go into why that was, but the potted version of events is, as you can hear, I speak with a very English accent, but you and I share an Irish background.
Weirdly, something I didn't know about you, that you grew up in Derry, of all places.
Exactly. We moved out there in 1982.
So where's the accent?
Well, I never picked it up. My parents speak with an English accent. Yeah. My dad is now retired, but he was a surgeon, and he applied for jobs all over the UK, and he got one in Derry. And my grandmother had been from Belfast, so there was a slight family connection. And we moved out there at a time when that part of the world was riven by civil war, that at the time was diminishingly called the Troubles, but it was essentially a civil war. And I'm not sure why I didn't pick up the accent, but if I think about it psychoanalytically, I wonder if part of it was so much in my life had changed that I wanted to hold into this one thing that I thought was still me. And because I spoke with an English accent, I never fitted in. If someone could hear me speak, I was automatically an outsider. Yeah. Sometimes even worse, I was the enemy. And so I became someone who observed and listened to what other people wanted from me, and then I tried to provide it. And that's how I went about making friends. And when I changed schools, so I had a miserable time at secondary school in Belfast, and I left halfway through the year, and I got a scholarship to a boarding school in England, where immediately I was accepted as speaking in the right way. But I became almost manic in my pursuit of what I thought was friendship, because it felt so isolating and scary being bullied and left out. And so at that point in my head, I thought the most important thing is to be liked, to be approved of, and to be accepted. And I need to do whatever it takes to get to that point. And actually that made me into a sort of obsessive and extreme people pleaser, where I didn't take the time to get to know who I was. And I confused fitting in when I was changing myself with true belonging, which is when you're accepted as you really are. And I think writing Friendaholic made me realise that, because I wanted this to be the story of friendship. Why does friendship happen? How has it evolved? Why do humans need it? Why have we ignored it for so long in favour of romantic love? Why isn't there a language to express what our friends are to us? But I also wanted to understand what my relationship to it was. And I came to realise that I had this sort of addictive past with it, where I would get a kind of high from an artificial buzz of connection where I was like, oh, this person likes me, hooray. But actually they didn't like me. They didn't know me because I didn't know myself. And so writing this definitely helped me know myself better.
Yeah, but it is that thing of we're all prone as we grow up and develop to be sort of chameleon-like, or I don't know whether it's that thing that is particular to those of us that life, for whatever reasons, singles out. So you feel slightly on the outside, so you'll shift and change to be part of something.
Yeah.
Usually at the cost of your own self-worth.
Yeah.
As the regular listeners and viewers will know, people, before they come on, fill in a little questionnaire as to the things they love and the things they hate. And you were vehement in your love of the dirty martini.
I am very drawn to this.
Just try it.
Thank you so much.
It's a proper Mayfair version.
And I've been through a whole phase of martinis where I used to only love the cleanest of the clean. And now, in my 40s, I'm suddenly like, no, give me the filth.
Give me dirty. How does that one? Is that good? Mm-hmm.
It's very, to be fair, I've had the Mount Street martini before. It's very...
It's not her first time
it's
here.
very, very
You're
good.
so Mayfair, aren't you?
Am I?
No.
What am I? If I were a part of London...
I don't know. But again, it's that kind of chameleon nature.
I can be whatever part you want me to be.
But you are so different in terms of how you carry yourself and how you sort of communicate now to when we first met.
Yeah.
And I think there is that thing of, you talk about friends and whatever, but I think what both of you and I share is we love people and we like communicating to people. It's part of, certainly for me, what makes me feel alive is if I'm having a good conversation, either with a friend or someone I have never met before. I like that interaction. And then if it develops into a friendship, great.
Yes.
But like you, I'm not so desperate to have those friendships or that feeling of belonging now. It is that thing of, look, I'm sort of, I'm 54 next birthday, and I am sort of what I am. I'll always be a work in progress to the day I die, but, if I upset you, it's not intentionally. If you go through life, you sort of do what you do, and as long as you don't hurt anybody.
Yeah.
But there is also the caveat that some people are really oversensitive and quite easy to hurt, and there's people who are just hanging out to be hurt. But I think I recognise that because we've both been those people at some point in our life where we're so on high alert in a social situation that you're there going, oh, why did they look at me like that? And what happened there? And then you just eventually go, oh, I'm giving so much headspace to this. What's the point?
Yeah, and that's actually something that Charmaine really made so clear to me. And the structure of Friendaholic...
Like really clear.
Really clear.
But
that's what her chapter's about, yeah. So the structure of Friendaholic is, there are 5 chapters where I talk to friends of mine, each of whom represents something different about friendship. And then interspersed with that, thematic chapters about friendship generally, frenemies, whether men and women can be friends, all of that stuff. And Charmaine was...
Yes, we can.
I know, thank goodness. Charmaine was my friend who represented clarity, like total clarity in communication. And that's what I love about her, because I know if I hurt her accidentally, she will tell me. So therefore I don't need to live in fear of having hurt her and her not telling me, and then my feeling guilty about it and ending up in a spiral of shame and self-loathing, which I have spent a lot of my life in that self-induced spiral. And you're right, it's completely exhausting. And actually, sometimes the greatest act of love is to speak with clarity. And you don't have to do that in a cruel way. You don't have to impose a boundary in a cruel way. You can do it with love and with affection. But I'm very interested in your sobriety and the soul searching you would have had to have done along that path, and what impact that might have had on friendships and your approach to friendship.
Well, I mean, it's quite interesting you raised that, because as I was reading that, I was reading about your old friends, your really old, the people you've known for years and years. And, obviously I haven't drunk now for over 30 years. I have 2 people who I see regularly from that period. There's my friend Jason and my other friend Chris. And, Jason I've known since I was so 17, 18, and Chris, we first met when we were 14 years old, trying to get into the mud club, when we were far too young to be doing that. And they are the people that I can connect with, drop back into that conversation straight away. And then I have other friends that I've developed either through AA or through business or whatever, that the connections are weirdly deeper. Because there is that thing, and I don't know if you have the same thing, is like, I have friends who know me better than my family.
100% true.
Because the family dynamic is very different, or it certainly is growing up in an Irish family where you don't necessarily talk at any great depth about anything. It's a particularly Irish thing where you go, we don't talk about that. No. And so I felt the need as a sober man to have a slightly more in-depth discussion about how I felt and who I was, and like yourself, I've done endless amounts of therapy, and although you claim only 12 weeks. Was it 12 weeks and done?
No, I've
You've
done loads more since then.
Yeah,
I still have therapy.
Yeah. So do I. Because I think it's an important thing. It's that thing of but 30 years ago, there was an enormous amount of shame attached to that by society and by yourself. That, oh God, I don't talk to anybody about it. And I think also what makes me a better friend to other people now is I really don't care what you think about me.
That's amazing and so enlightened.
Because what's the point?
Yeah. And it doesn't mean that you don't care about the person. It's just that you have absolutely no control or agency over their response to you. And that's been a really long process for me, as you know, having been there for me through some of it. And also, especially as whatever profile I do have has got a bit bigger through the podcast. So that there's more.
A bit bigger. It's massive. There's 50 million downloads.
But therefore, there's more commentary. So there's going to be more people with more opinions, and I've had to be able to be comfortable with the idea that there are absolutely people out there who don't understand what I do and don't like what I do. And now the way that I look at it is, you will know this from my food preferences, I love cheese. Like, I will do a lot for cheese.
Okay.
I'm always more savoury than sweet. But there are some people who don't like cheese, or they're lactose intolerant, and they will never get it. And they will say, oh, I hate cheese.
Well, and
I don't agree with them. And that's okay.
I've got something down here.
It's like a seamless link.
Right?
Stop, it's crumpets.
Crumpets with...
my favourite thing in the world.
With cheese.
And Marmite.
And Marmite. Now, I've said this before.
Oh my God.
I fall into a strange category
Are these
of Marmite.
No.
Well, they were. But we've talked about your book for so long that they're now cold. But
they look
what
perfection.
Are you saying you're not going to eat them because
no,
they're
I am
cold?
good. They look very well toasted, which is another thing that people get wrong.
Oh,
they
no.
under toast a crumpet.
No, you've got to give it that crunch. You just dig in.
Can you see how excited I am?
No, go for it. We aim to please and challenge.
Okay.
On here.
I'm on the podcast, but I would never eat with a knife and fork crumpets. So I'm just going to do this.
No, don't. It's not. Most food tastes better that you eat with your hand or a spoon.
Oh my God.
Yeah? Perfect, right? Because the thing about that is, you have Marmite on it as well. And I fall into a strange category where I don't mind it. Well, you obviously love Marmite. I can take it or leave it. Does that make me weird?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think you're the only person in the world who, you really undermined their entire marketing campaign there. That is so good. And do you know what I've never had? A crumpet with a vodka martini.
Well, there we go.
And I'm going to do that now.
We're covering new ground already.
I feel like Churchill.
So, but you claim the love of cheese comes from being half Swiss.
Yes.
Is that a spurious claim to your half Swissness?
It's a bit of a spurious claim, but I am actually half Swiss. And Switzerland is obviously famed for incredible cheeses, and there are really happy memories I have of family meals where it's literally a massive bowl, preferably two, of melted cheese that you just dip pieces of bread into.
But I don't understand, and part of the whole reason for this podcast is there's nothing I won't eat. There's combinations of stuff that I think don't work, but there isn't an ingredient I go, I don't like that.
I'm the same, and that's why I've always had a secret suspicion. You know, you sometimes play that game with yourself, like what game show would you go on if you got the opportunity? Like if I became famous and I was offered one of these shows, I think I could nail the eating tasks in I'm a Celebrity. Because I think that's one of my skills, is that I can eat anything.
Okay, well that said, I've got
some kangaroo testicles
I've
right
got
here.
down here a small thing of balls.
Okay.
I'm going to open these up. We're opening them up now.
Fascinating.
Now, if you eat anything, just eat one of those and don't smell it first.
Okay.
Here we go.
Okay.
Here we go. Because you say you eat anything. What have we got going on there?
Very chewy centre.
Yep. But what is that centre? Because you said you hated
Oh,
that.
it's licoricey.
Yes.
Also, I've got a terrible palate.
This doesn't bode well for the rest of this podcast. She couldn't taste the one thing that she
I
hated.
can taste it now.
Well, it's sort of disguised. But
Yeah,
how
'cause
unpleasant is that out of 10?
A 3.
Yeah, because you see,
But that's because it's encased in something else.
actually, that's my whole thing.
But I've got the aftertaste now.
Yeah, well, you've got the vodka
the
martini
and the crumpet.
and the crumpets to wash
What
it
is
down.
that encased in?
So this is encased in chocolate, and with a sort of slight peach back note. They're these
Interesting, because I wouldn't have thought. I don't normally like
Lacrids,
fruit with
Lacrids by
chocolate.
Bülow.
Okay.
It's Danish confectionery.
Oh, well, if it's Danish.
Yeah.
Again, predisposed to like anything Danish because they're so chic and stylish.
Well, yes, they are. And
great.
my friend Chris is Danish. My old friend Chris.
Well,
is
and
Danish.
that's another reason to love
Well,
the
if
Danes.
you like those, you can take those
I-
home. Have we changed your opinion on licorice? This is the question.
No,
Okay.
but you changed my opinion in how licorice can be served in a way that makes it less offensive to my tongue.
That's that.
Yeah.
But that is the whole thing. Is like there is no such thing as a bad ingredient. You've either had it cooked incorrectly for you, or
Yeah.
you've had it as a bad combination, or something.
too much
And
of
some
it.
things don't work in isolation. Like I don't want to pick up a sprig of dill and eat it, but I'm perfectly happy with it in Gravlax.
Yeah, it's no big deal.
Yeah. Ah.
Hey!
She's here till Friday. Have you tried the veal? So, obviously, you fill out this questionnaire. We've got your guilty pleasure here, which is your crumpets with Marmite and cheese.
I would have eaten both of them, but I know there's stuff coming, so
Well,
I'm
there's
like
stuff
restraining
there.
myself.
But I mean, look, if you want to carry on, that's
Thank
fine.
you.
There's only a spoon of
Okay,
each
okay.
under here. Now, you raise Emma.
Yes.
Now, how does she feel, and how do your other friends feel that she was basically singled out as your best friend in your book?
I know. Well,
Are there other people going, what's Emma got that I haven't got? I mean, you're even now doing podcasts about friendship with her.
I know. It has sometimes been complicated for a friendaholic like me who constantly wants to make friends and finds that
You're
that's
very good at it
it's
as well.
the force of life. Thank you. But it also meant that I cheapened the very notion of friendship because I was trying to befriend everyone at the same level. And that's simply impossible because life is finite and ultimately you have to apportion your time carefully. So the people who are closest to you must get most of your nurture and time. And trying to do that with everyone, I think for Emma, probably if she was a different kind of person, she might feel threatened by that, by my like constant need to forge new connections. And that's why the label best friend became important to us both. It became important to Emma because she knew that she occupied a special place in my heart and in my life. And it became important to me almost as a reminder that this was the person and this was the friendship metric. And so but for other people, labels aren't necessarily their bag and they might not have a best friend and they might never need one, and that's completely fine, and it might sound twee or exclusive, but for us it's really meaningful because it speaks to that level of chosen family.
Now, I'm getting into slightly dangerous territory here by discussing gender in all of this. And from what I observe, and I could be wrong with this, and I'm happy for you as the friend expert to correct me, it appears like it is harder for women to have that level of friendship, or not even that level. I think that, we all have the potential to have a best friend, but that next layer below where there's sort of competition that in an unsaid way, whereas I find with men there is either you recognise where the competition is much, because basically we're a bit simpler,
Yeah.
Do you see what I'm getting at? That thing of like, men's relationships are at that kind of just below surface level, far less complicated than the relationships that women appear to have.
Yeah.
Where it's like, I see the friends that my wife has, and like, she's great, she did this, and oh, they did this the other day, and I never find myself talking about my male friends, and the close ones, I literally wouldn't run out of fingers on that hand. But there's not that complexity to the relationships. And
I think there's so much to unpack here, because so much of it is historical as well. And generally speaking, men have been given the power to express themselves clearly and to forge a life outside of the domestic sphere. Whereas historically speaking, if we're going back to sort of Victorian times and before that, a woman's sphere was very much seen in the home with the family, and the way that she was able to forge friendships beyond that was incredibly limited. Whereas men got more practiced, arguably, at forging alliances, relationships with colleagues and friendships outside of that space where things could be more clearly expressed. That's changed enormously as time has gone on. And the other thing that is interesting about men historically is that a lot of the research shows that there needs to be a shared interest of sorts for a man to forge a friendship. It's that sense of being shoulder to shoulder with someone. So like, either you're down the pub watching rugby, or you're taking a knitting course together, or you have a shared interest that enables you to access a means of expressing yourself that just feels more straightforward. Whereas with women, generally speaking, historically speaking, not the case now, because we live in a non-binary world and multiple genders have lots of different friendship identities. But I think there was much more attention paid to nuance, to that idea of being a people pleaser, being kind, thinking of the other person before yourself. And perhaps that leads into sort of conflict avoidance and trying to keep things together and trying to develop sort of healthy family units in cooperation with other healthy family units. And maybe that's where that kind of tricksiness arises. Having said that, with all the stuff that I've written about friendship and a large amount I've now spoken about it, I think I'm much clearer myself, and Charmaine's taught me a lot in that respect as well. And actually Emma and I had an amazingly brilliant example of very clear communication recently, where I think if your default is to think the best of your friend, even if they say something that might potentially be difficult to hear, your default is like, well, they're saying this because they love me. Like, that's the generosity of spirit that I find important in friendship.
And I think, if you talk about shared and common interest, I think, a lot of my close friends are based out of the fact that we're in recovery together. So we have the shared interest of not being insane without our drug of choice.
Yeah. And that leads to you have to be clear in your comms then. You have to be honest.
I mean, well, the basis of it is honesty.
Exactly.
Without honesty, there's no friendship. And I do think there is that thing of, obviously there is the, does it need to be said? Does it need to be said right now? Does it need to be said at all? And you have to make those judgment calls, because sometimes you've just got to let people work it out for themselves. But on the whole, that honest and open dialogue is life-saving. Yes. Particularly, I think, for men, because we tend not to talk about stuff.
Well, I also wonder whether, there's a book that I quote in Friendaholic written by Cicero, entitled How to Be a Friend. And the ancients actually had a lot to say about friendship. And it's because their friendships, a lot of the time, were forged in war. They were constantly at war. So they would have these sort of very intense comradeships with other men. And he is fascinating on the subject of friendship, but I won't go off on that wild tangent right now. But I wonder if there's something about, historically for men, friendships, comradeships being forged in conflict that makes you less conflict avoidant in expressing something that needs to be said. If someone's annoyed you, you just say it.
Yeah. I think certainly within the friends that I have who are in AA, there is a language that develops where if somebody is being a, you just say, you're being a, right now, and they won't take it in that way of like, what are you talking about? You know, they'll stop because it's coming from someone with a common goal, and take it on board, or at least look at it, because there is the old adage that if you meet, you know, more than 3 before 12 o'clock, the third one might be you.
Yes.
And you might have to recalibrate your day. But I can't help feeling, and I could be wrong, that there is because of the more simplistic nature of how men tend to see things in the traditional roles, that it's not as complex. And looking at some of the sort of, quite frankly, as you've reflected on them, the ridiculously complex sort of situations you found yourself in Friends, in terms of, you just sort of go, God, that's, you know, how did you maintain that friendship for so long? It sounds exhausting.
Well, also you asked me at the very beginning whether I've changed names, and I absolutely have. But I knew that if I were going to write a book that told the truth about friendship,
those people must know. They'll have read it. Because there is, what is it they say about memoirs? That thing of like, true revenge is leaving them out.
Yes, exactly.
You don't write about them before. You know, there's people in your life, you pick up the book and go, oh, hold on.
Where's the index?
I'm not in it. This is awful.
I hope you agree that I write about the friendships that have ended. I write about them with love and compassion, because actually
owning your part in it.
Thank you. Oh, that was really important to me, because I knew that if I wanted to tell the truth about friendship, which is absolutely what I set out to do, I also had to tell the truth about the part that I played in dysfunctional friendships, and when I didn't show up in the way that I wished I had, and friendships that had gone awry, because that's so much part of why we haven't spent enough time talking or studying friendship, because we're scared of it. We're scared of friendships ending, but actually it's part of the natural process of life.
Thing, as you get older, or you start to think about how stuff is happening for you, one of the things you learn is, if something goes wrong in a relationship or in life, rather than pointing outwards, you've got to point inwards first to understand it and get perspective on it. And that whole thing of like, what was my part in it? And going back to what I said, is like, try and approach life as like, all I'm trying to do is keep my side of the street clean. And then what you find is other people tend to come along for the ride, because they're not getting a sense of judgment from you. They're not getting a sense of finger pointing from you. It's like, you're doing that, that's fine. How's that working out for you?
Yeah.
If you want to talk about it, come and have a chat. But, you know, I'm not going to point out to you that I think you're being a total at the moment, because we know each other well enough to know you're being a and when you want to own it, I'm here.
And as you say, often when we're judgmental of other people, it's because we're most judgmental and critical of ourselves. And actually, if we extend compassion to ourselves and to our flaws, and we are honest about that, but accepting, and we try to do better, but we love ourselves for trying, then we tend to be less judgmental of other people as a consequence, and others can pick up on that.
But the truly judgy ones are the ones who don't want to look at their own stuff.
Definitely. Definitely.
If you've got a friend who is going, why are you wearing that? Or the other favourite, you know when you need to get out of a friendship, when somebody turns to you and goes, I don't care what anyone else says. I think you're great. You're like, you can go away.
That sounds like it came from a position of lived experience, Mark.
Yeah, you know, there's always those people. Now, we have come to that time in proceedings. You need to prepare yourself.
I'm excited. I'm excited about the challenge.
Now, down here,
I'm going to put this to one side
been
so
warming,
they stop tempting me.
Yeah, which have been warming down my lower back.
What, have you been sitting on them?
Well, they're sort of.
Oh, sorry, it's a blind. I thought it was the spoons.
You've got a choice. No, you've got a choice. Leopard print or just plain black?
I think your mum Helen would go for the plain black, and that's what I'm going for.
Okay, classy.
Yeah, exactly, because she's...
I said to Johnny, the producer, let's get to, I'm sure she'll go for the leopard print.
Do you know, I was drawn to it, but I was like, no, I feel like...
I want to be taken seriously at this point.
It's more that I thought this would go better with my stripes.
It does. It's a perfect tone. The same shade of black as your stripes.
Okay.
Right. So, what you're going to do,
oh my God,
pull the blindfold down.
Actually quite freaky for a control maniac.
Well,
like
we've
me.
all got control issues underneath it all.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
Don't
this
worry.
is very eyes wide shut.
You've got a peaky thing. I can see you're trying to peek down.
I'm not.
To one side. There
I was
we go.
putting my hair to
That's
bottom.
it.
They're very dark, these. I need to get one for night time.
Yes. What you do in your private time is up to you. So we're going to go with the first spoon here.
Okay.
I think we're going to go with this one first, actually. Let's slide that over. All right. And I am going to feed you this.
God, this is terrifying.
Open
Do people
wide.
get scared?
Yes, all the time. Open wide. Bit wider. There we go. Now tell me, what flavours, what textures are you getting there? Is that enjoyable?
A bit like the licorice ball. The outside was really nice. The inside, is that like is it a kidney? Is it some sort of kidney?
Spotted.
Is it?
Take that off. Take that off. Now,
Wow. But it didn't taste horrible. Oh, no, I'm getting it now.
Yeah. You see,
That's really interesting because the only way that I knew what that was the texture. It wasn't the taste.
yeah, because that's the thing, is you said on your list that you hate all offal.
Yeah.
And
I find it awful.
I mean, you didn't spit it out. We've had people.
Thanks, guys.
Those-
I'm here all morning.
At least the camera crew are laughing. Jesus, it's a punner.
I love a pun. I love a pun.
But we've got there a little devilled kidney on a bit of toast.
That's a devilled kidney.
Yeah, it's nice, isn't it?
It's really nice.
Yeah.
And what's the sauce?
Well, no, because you've got it on a little omelette as well.
Huh. And the sauce?
It's like a cheesy,
thingy.
kind
Okay.
of spicy, nice.
That actually, I have to say,
Would you eat the second spoon now? This is the question.
I actually would.
Go on then.
Okay.
Because the test of whether we have succeeded is whether they'll eat the second spoon unblindfolded. Now, have we slightly changed your opinion on how offal can be?
You really have.
You see?
But is that just because of the things that are cooked around it?
Yeah, but that's my whole point
Okay.
about all of this. It's like...
It's like, that's the point of the podcast, love.
Jeez, when's that going to sink in?
That's really...
But
That's really
I
nice.
think, with all of it, you don't like kidneys. So if I just fried a kidney off and tried to feed it to you, obviously
Yes.
you're going to dislike it.
Yeah.
But if I make a nice, or not me personally, Jamie Shears, the fantastic chef here, makes one of his signature dishes there, which is the devil kidney omelette, it's a completely different thing.
But the problem is that you don't know when you order it on a menu whether they're going to
How
be
much
cooking
kidney
it
am I
like...
getting here? But I mean, that was a big bit of kidney on
Yeah.
there.
All right.
But
Don't kidney shame me.
No. I'm about to kidney props you, because
you.
we had a similar thing where we did a kidney on a piece of toast with a very well-known chef. They couldn't recognise the kidney.
Really?
Yeah, so I'm just saying,
Oh, I'm
as much
so
as you
proud
say
of
you have
myself.
a
terrible palate.
terrible palate,
Yeah.
turns out you don't, because you were able to spot that straight away.
I spotted the texture. How fast? Thank you.
Well,
That's been a
you
great
see.
journey of discovery.
And Justin will thank me, because he loves all food.
Yes, he does.
I mean,
I'm
it's
trying
very
to think if there's anything
passionate.
that he doesn't like. But
Right, let's go with our final spoon here.
Okay.
I'm just get you. Is secure? Yes,
Yeah.
good. I'm going to slide this one across here. Oh, look at this. There we go. Open wide. Here we go. It's a big mouthful, this one. There we go. Chew away on that. Tell me what you think. What are you getting? What are your flavours? What are your textures?
Cheese.
Cheese.
Oh my god. It's like the inside of the most delicious cheesy croquette you've ever eaten, with a bit of bread.
Yeah. It's just very simply Welsh rarebit.
Oh my gosh, so good.
Well, you can whip your blindfold off now and
Oh my gosh.
have your second
Actually,
spoon
I have
if
to
you
say
like.
the experience of eating blindfolded is very special.
It's good, isn't it?
Yeah,
Because
it encourages mindfulness.
massive thanks to Elizabeth. Of course, her book, Friendaholic, is out now. I can highly recommend it if you want to understand how to be a friend to someone, including yourself. That is it for Spooning this week. Of course, next week I'll be joined by another very special guest where they'll be trying the food they love and the food they hate, albeit blindfolded. Massive thanks, of course, to Jamie Shears and the team here at the Mount Street Restaurant. You can find us wherever you get your podcast. Just look for Spooning with Mark Wogan. And of course, we are on YouTube as well, if you would like to watch what we're doing here. So until next week, stay beautiful.